Hey everyone, welcome to Think and Speak English. I'm Adam.
And I'm Julia. We are so happy you're here because this is a very special moment. This is our very first episode.
That's right, Episode 1. The beginning of a journey that we've designed to take you from B1 all the way to C2, step by step, episode by episode. And we're going to do it together in the most natural, relaxed, and human way we can.
If you're listening to this, you probably already know some English. You can have basic conversations. You understand a lot of what you hear. But maybe, just maybe, you feel like something is missing, like there's a gap between the English you know and the English you actually use in real life.
And that gap, that's exactly what this podcast is here to close. We're not going to teach you grammar rules or give you vocabulary lists. We're going to have real conversations, share real stories, and give you phrases and patterns that you can actually use today, tomorrow, this weekend.
We'll talk slowly, we'll repeat important ideas, we'll explain things in a friendly, calm way. Think of us as two friends sitting with you, helping you feel more comfortable and more confident in English.
And today we're going to talk about something really common in daily life. It's silence. Those moments when nobody is talking and you think, oh no, this is awkward.
Yeah, I know that feeling very well. You're in a conversation and suddenly it gets quiet, and you start thinking, should I say something? Did I say something wrong? Is this my fault?
Exactly. And our topic today is daily life conversations without awkward silence. We'll talk about how to feel more relaxed, how to use simple, natural English, and how to make silence feel okay, not scary.
And we're going to do this in a calm way. We'll talk slowly, we'll share stories, we'll act out some conversations, so you can listen, relax, and feel like you're sitting in the room with us.
So take a deep breath, relax your shoulders, and let's begin.
Adam, let's start by talking about why silence in conversation feels so uncomfortable, because I think if we understand the feeling, we can start to change it.
That's a great place to start. I think the main reason silence feels uncomfortable is that we interpret it. We give it meaning. When nobody is talking, our brain starts telling us a story.
And it's usually not a nice story, is it?
No, not at all. The story is usually something like, this person thinks I'm boring, or I should be saying something clever right now, or this conversation is failing and it's my fault.
And when you're speaking in a second language, those stories get even louder, because now you're not just worried about the silence, you're also thinking, maybe I made a grammar mistake, or maybe they didn't understand me, or maybe my pronunciation was wrong.
So you have two layers of worry, the social worry about the silence and the language worry about your English. And together, they can make even a short pause feel like an eternity.
But here's the truth, and I really want our listeners to hear this. Silence in conversation is completely normal. Every conversation has pauses. Every conversation has moments where nobody talks for a few seconds. That's not failure, that's just conversation.
Think about conversations in your first language. Do they flow perfectly every single second? No. There are pauses. There are moments where someone is thinking. There are moments where the topic changes and nobody knows what to say next. And most of the time, it's fine.
The difference is, in your first language, you don't panic during those pauses. You just wait, or you think of something, or you let the other person take a turn. It feels natural.
So the goal today is not to eliminate silence. That's impossible, and honestly, it would be exhausting to try. The goal is to change how you feel about silence and to give you some simple tools for those moments when you want to keep the conversation going.
That's such an important distinction. We're not trying to fill every second with words. We're trying to help you feel calm and confident, even when there's a pause.
Julia, you mentioned that our brain tells us stories during silence. I think we should talk about that more, because changing that inner story might be the most powerful thing our listeners can do.
I completely agree. This is not really about language, it's about mindset, and mindset changes everything.
So here's what I want to suggest. The next time you're in a conversation and there's a pause, notice what your brain is telling you. What story is it creating?
If you feel silence in a conversation, you can choose a new story in your head.
Instead of, this is a disaster, you can think, this is a normal pause.
Instead of they think I'm stupid, you can think, we are both human, we are both thinking.
Those two shifts, this is a normal pause, and we are both human, can completely change how you experience silence, because the silence itself is not the problem. The story you tell yourself about the silence is the problem.
And here's something else to remember. The other person in the conversation? They're probably not thinking about the silence as much as you are. Most of the time, they're thinking about what they want to say next, or they're just relaxing for a moment.
That's so true. We tend to think everyone is focused on us, judging us, noticing every pause. But in reality, people are mostly focused on themselves. They're thinking about their own words, their own ideas, their own comfort.
So the silence that feels enormous to you, the other person might not even notice it.
You can even imagine our voices with you, sitting in your mind saying, "It's okay, take your time."
We're here with you in a way, in your headphones or speakers, walking through silence together.
And I really mean that whenever you're in a conversation and you feel that moment of panic, imagine Julia or me saying, "It's fine, just breathe, you're doing great."
Because you're doing great. The fact that you're having a conversation in a second language is already impressive. A few seconds of silence doesn't change that.
Maybe I should share a personal story, because I think it will help our listeners feel less alone in this experience.
Please do, Adam.
A few years ago, I was at a dinner party with people I didn't know very well, and I was sitting next to someone and we started chatting. It was going fine, basic small talk, what do you do? And where are you from? But then, after about 5 minutes, we ran out of things to say, and there was this silence.
How did it feel?
Terrible. My mind went completely blank. I could feel my face getting warm. I was thinking, say something? Anything. Come on. But the harder I tried to think of something, the more empty my brain felt.
I think everyone has been there. That feeling of your mind going completely blank is so universal.
And you know what happened? After about 10 seconds, which felt like 10 minutes, the other person said, "So, have you tried the food? The pasta is really good." And just like that, the conversation started again.
So the other person saved it with a very simple comment about the food.
Exactly. And afterward, I realized something important. That 10 seconds of silence? The other person probably didn't even think it was awkward. They were just looking at their plate, thinking about what to say next, and then they said something simple. It was only awkward in my head.
That's such a valuable insight. The awkwardness often exists mostly in our own minds.
And the other thing I learned from that moment is that the thing that broke the silence was incredibly simple. It wasn't a brilliant question or a fascinating observation. It was just, "Have you tried the pasta?" Sometimes the simplest words are all you need.
I have a similar story, actually. I was once in a taxi and the driver started talking to me. We chatted for a few minutes and then it got quiet. And I felt that pressure to keep the conversation going, so I said the first thing that came to my mind, which was, "It's really nice weather today, isn't it?"
The classic weather comment.
Yes. And you know what? The driver smiled and said, "Oh yes, finally some sunshine after all that rain." And then we talked about the weather for another 5 minutes. It wasn't the most exciting conversation in the world, but it was pleasant, it was easy, and neither of us felt uncomfortable.
And that's really the point. Conversations don't need to be deep or exciting every single moment. They just need to keep moving gently, like a slow river. Sometimes the river is wide and fast, and sometimes it's narrow and calm. Both are fine.
I love that image. A slow river. That's exactly what good conversation feels like.
All right, let's get practical. Let's talk about some simple tools that you can use when you feel a conversation starting to slow down.
And I want to emphasize the word simple. These are not complicated phrases. They're short, natural, everyday expressions that English speakers use all the time.
The first tool is what I call a restart phrase. These are little expressions that help you change the topic or bring new energy into the conversation when things get quiet.
Restarts like, "So, by the way," or, "Oh, I wanted to ask you," or "One more thing."
These are not magic words, but they are small, helpful tools in daily conversation.
Let me explain why they work. When you say, "So, by the way," it signals to the other person, "I'm about to introduce something new." It creates a little bridge from the silence to a new topic. And because it starts with "so," it feels casual and natural, not forced.
"Oh, I wanted to ask you" is another great one. It makes it sound like you just remembered something, even if you've been thinking about it for the last 30 seconds during the silence. It feels spontaneous.
And "one more thing" is perfect when you want to add something to what you were already talking about, or when you want to circle back to an earlier topic.
Let me give you some examples of how these work in real conversation. Imagine you've been talking about work, and the conversation fades. You could say, "So, by the way, have you seen any good movies lately?"
Or, "Oh, I wanted to ask you, are you doing anything fun this weekend?"
Or one more thing, you mentioned earlier that you like cooking. What's your favorite thing to make?
See how natural those sound? They're not complicated. They don't require advanced grammar. They're just small bridges that carry the conversation forward.
The second tool is follow-up questions. When someone tells you something, instead of just saying, "Oh, nice," try asking a question about what they just said.
For example, if someone says, "I went to the beach last weekend," you could ask, "Oh, which beach did you go to?" Or "How was the weather?" Or "Did you go with friends?"
Each of those questions keeps the conversation alive without much effort. You're just showing interest in what the other person shared.
And here's the beautiful thing about follow-up questions. They take the pressure off you. Instead of trying to think of something new and interesting to say, you just listen to what the other person said and ask about it. They do the talking and you get to listen.
That's such a good point, Julia. Follow-up questions are not just conversation tools. They're also energy-saving tools. When you're tired or nervous, asking questions is much easier than coming up with new topics.
The third tool is what I call echo and expand. This means you repeat a small part of what the other person said, and then you add a little bit of your own experience.
For example, if someone says, "I love Italian food," you could say, "Italian food? Me too. I had the most amazing pasta last week at a little place near my office."
You echoed Italian food and then expanded with your own experience. Now the other person can ask about the restaurant or talk about their favorite Italian dish, and the conversation keeps flowing.
It's such a natural pattern. Listen to native speakers, and you'll hear them do this all the time. They pick up on something the other person said and build on it.
The fourth tool is sharing a small reaction before your response. Instead of jumping straight to your answer, you first show a little emotion or acknowledgement.
Things like, "Oh, really?" or "That sounds nice," or "No way," or "I know what you mean."
These tiny reactions do something very important. They tell the other person, "I'm listening. I care about what you're saying." And that makes the conversation feel warm and connected.
Without those reactions, conversations can feel a bit cold, like an interview where one person asks questions and the other person answers. But when you add, "Oh, that sounds amazing," before your next sentence, suddenly it feels like a real exchange between two people who are genuinely interested in each other.
So to summarize our four tools: restart phrases, follow-up questions, echo and expand, and small reactions. These are your conversation survival kit.
And you don't need to use all four at once. Even one of them, used at the right moment, can keep a conversation going smoothly.
Let's practice with some realistic scenarios now. Our first one is a very common situation: meeting someone new for the first time, maybe at a party, maybe at a work event, maybe through a mutual friend.
This is one of the situations where people feel the most pressure, because you don't know the other person yet, and you don't have shared history to talk about.
So let's walk through it. Imagine you're at a friend's birthday party and you end up standing next to someone you've never met. How do you start?
The simplest opener is a greeting plus a connection to the situation. "Hi, I'm Adam. How do you know Sarah?"
That's perfect. It's friendly, it's relevant, and it immediately gives the other person something specific to talk about.
And the other person might say, "Oh, we work together. We've been on the same team for about 2 years."
Now you have something to work with. You could say, "Oh, really? What kind of work do you do?"
"I work in marketing, mostly digital campaigns."
That sounds interesting. I don't know much about marketing, but I always wonder how people decide what ads to show online.
And just like that, the conversation is flowing. You showed interest, you admitted you don't know much about the topic, which is totally fine, and you asked a question that the other person can easily answer.
Let's keep going. The other person explains a bit about their work, and then there's a natural pause. This is the moment where many people freeze, but you don't have to, because you have tools.
You could use a restart phrase. "So, by the way, have you been to one of Sarah's parties before? She always has great music."
Or you could echo and expand. If they mention something about working from home, you could say, "Working from home, that's interesting. I tried it during the pandemic, and honestly, I had a hard time staying focused. How do you manage it?"
Or you could just share a small reaction and let the conversation breathe. That's really cool. I always admire people who are creative like that.
And then maybe the other person asks you something and the conversation continues naturally.
The key thing to notice here is that nothing we said was complicated. No advanced vocabulary, no perfect grammar, just simple, honest, curious language.
And curiosity, I think, is the real secret to good conversation. If you're genuinely curious about the other person, the words come much more easily.
Let's do another scenario. This time, imagine you're running into your neighbor in the hallway or on the street. You see each other regularly, but you don't know each other very well.
This is the kind of situation where small talk is expected, but it doesn't need to go deep. It's just a friendly exchange that says, I see you, I acknowledge you, we're neighbors.
So you might say, hey, how are you? Busy day.
And they might say, yeah, it's been a long week. I'm just glad it's Friday.
Me too. Any plans for the weekend?
Not really, maybe just some rest. How about you?
I think I'm going to try that new cafe on the corner. Have you been there?
No, not yet. Is it good?
I haven't tried it either, but it looks nice from outside. I'll let you know how it is.
Please do. All right, have a good weekend.
You too. Take care.
And that's it. That whole conversation took about 30 seconds. It wasn't deep or meaningful, but it was warm. It was friendly. It made both people feel good.
And notice the pattern. Greeting, a question about their day, a question about their weekend, sharing a small piece of your own plans, and then a friendly goodbye.
This is the basic structure of small talk with acquaintances. You don't need to go any deeper than this. The goal is just to be pleasant and show that you're a friendly person.
But here's a nice bonus. Over time, these small interactions build up. After you've had 20 of these short conversations with your neighbor, you'll feel more comfortable around each other. And one day, one of these small talks might turn into a real friendship.
That's true. Many friendships start with small talk. You never know where a simple "how's your weekend" might lead.
Let's try one more scenario. This time, you're at work and you're sitting in the lunch area with a colleague. You know each other, but you're not close friends. How do you have a comfortable conversation without it feeling forced?
This is a great scenario because many people eat lunch at work and feel nervous about these moments. You don't want to sit in complete silence, but you also don't want to force a conversation about work when you're supposed to be relaxing.
So you sit down and you start with something natural. Hey, how's your day going so far?
Honestly, a little stressful. I've had 3 meetings already and it's only lunchtime.
Oh no, 3 meetings before lunch. That's tough. At least you can relax for a few minutes now.
Yeah, I need it. What about you?
Pretty quiet, actually. I've been working on a report all morning. It's not exciting, but at least nobody's bothering me.
Ha! Sometimes a quiet morning is the best kind of morning.
Exactly. So by the way, have you tried this soup? I've never seen it in the menu before.
No, I haven't. Let me try a bit. Oh, that's actually pretty good.
Right? I was surprised too.
And now you're talking about food, which is one of the easiest and most universal conversation topics. Everyone eats. Everyone has opinions about food. It's a safe, comfortable subject.
From there, the conversation could go in any direction. Maybe you talk about restaurants, maybe about cooking, maybe about weekend plans. It doesn't matter where it goes. What matters is that it flows naturally without pressure.
And notice that both people shared a little about their day, showed empathy for each other, and then shifted to a lighter topic. That's a very typical lunch conversation pattern.
One more thing about this scenario. It's okay if the conversation has pauses. If you're both eating, there will naturally be moments when nobody is talking because you're chewing. That's not awkward. That's just eating lunch.
That's such a good point. Not every moment of silence is awkward silence. Sometimes silence is just silence. And it's perfectly fine.
Julia, let's talk about something that I know many of our listeners experience. That moment when your mind goes completely blank. You want to say something, but there's nothing there. It's like someone turned off the lights in your brain.
Oh, I know that feeling so well, and it can feel terrifying, especially in a second language.
So what do you do in that moment? Let me share a few strategies.
The first one is just be honest. You can say, sorry, I just lost my train of thought, or wait, what was I going to say? Or even, my brain just went blank for a second.
These are totally natural things to say, and they actually make the other person feel closer to you, because it shows you're human. Everyone's brain goes blank sometimes. Admitting it openly is actually charming.
The second strategy is to go back to what the other person said. If you can't think of something new, you can return to an earlier topic. Actually, going back to what you said about your trip, where exactly did you go?
This is a wonderful technique because it shows the other person that you are paying attention, and it gives you an easy way to restart the conversation without inventing a new topic from scratch.
The third strategy is to comment on your surroundings. Look around. What do you see? What do you hear? What's happening nearby?
Oh, look at that dog over there. So cute. Or, this coffee is really good, isn't it? Or, I love the music they're playing here.
These observations feel natural because you're responding to the real world around you. You're not performing, you're just noticing and sharing.
The fourth strategy is to ask a simple, open question. When in doubt, ask something. What have you been up to lately? Or, have you watched anything good recently? Or, are you working on anything interesting these days?
Open questions are wonderful because they give the other person room to talk. And while they're talking, your brain gets a chance to relax and think of what to say next.
And the fifth strategy, which I think is maybe the most important, is to let the silence exist. Don't fight it. Don't panic. Just let it be there for a moment.
Because sometimes, if you wait 3 or 4 seconds, the other person will say something, or your brain will come back online and give you a thought. The silence doesn't need to be fixed immediately. It just needs to be tolerated.
And honestly, the more you practice tolerating silence, the less scary it becomes. It's like anything else. The first time is hard. The 10th time is easier. The 100th time is nothing.
Adam, I want to talk about something that I think is even more important than knowing what to say, and that's knowing how to listen.
Absolutely. Listening is the most underrated conversation skill. Most people think good conversationalists are people who talk a lot and always have interesting things to say. But actually, the best conversationalists are the ones who listen well.
And here's why. When you listen carefully, the conversation takes care of itself. The other person gives you all the material you need. They mention a place, an experience, a feeling, and all you have to do is pick up on it and respond.
It's like the other person is handing you gifts, and all you have to do is unwrap them.
I love that analogy. Every sentence someone says contains a possible next topic. You just have to be listening closely enough to catch it.
For example, if someone says, I had a really nice weekend, my sister came to visit and we went to that big market downtown. How many gifts are in that sentence?
At least 3. You could ask about the weekend, about the sister, or about the market.
Exactly. Oh, your sister visited? Does she live far away? Or, the big market downtown, I've always wanted to go there. What's it like? Or even that sounds like a lovely weekend. Do you and your sister get to see each other often?
And any of those responses would keep the conversation going easily for another few minutes.
But here's the thing. You can only catch those gifts if you're actually listening. If you're spending the whole time worrying about what you're going to say next, you'll miss them.
That's such an important point. Many people think they need to plan their next sentence while the other person is talking. But that actually makes conversations harder, not easier because you're not fully present.
So my advice is this. When the other person is talking, just listen. Really listen, don't plan, don't rehearse, just receive their words, and trust that when it's your turn to speak, something will come to you.
It might not come immediately. There might be a short pause, but that's okay, because now you know that short pauses are normal and healthy.
And when you do respond, your response will be better because it will be based on what the other person actually said, not on something you prepared in your head 3 sentences ago.
Listening is a gift you give to the other person, and it's also a gift you give to yourself because it makes conversations so much easier and more enjoyable.
Julia, I think this is a good moment to talk about expectations because I think many of our listeners put too much pressure on themselves to have perfect conversations.
Oh, definitely. There's this idea that every conversation should be smooth, interesting, and engaging from start to finish. But that's not how real conversations work, not even for native speakers.
And finally, maybe the most important idea. You don't have to be perfect.
You don't need perfect grammar, perfect vocabulary, or perfect timing.
You just need to keep going, in a soft, kind way, with yourself and with others.
I want to expand on that because I think it's so important. Many English learners feel like every conversation is a test. They think that if they make a grammar mistake, or if they can't find the right word, or if there's an awkward pause, they've failed.
But conversation is not a test. There's no score, there's no grade. The only thing that matters is connection. Did you and the other person share a moment? Did you make each other feel a little less alone? That's a successful conversation, even if it included 3 grammar mistakes and 2 awkward pauses.
I once had a conversation with a taxi driver in a country where I barely spoke the language. I was using broken sentences, gestures, and a lot of pointing. And you know what? We laughed together. We understood each other enough to share a joke. And when I got out of the taxi, I felt happy. That was a successful conversation.
That's a wonderful example because it shows that communication is about so much more than language. It's about warmth, willingness, and effort.
And when you bring those things to a conversation, people notice. They don't notice your grammar mistakes. They notice your smile, your curiosity, your effort to connect.
So please, be gentle with yourself. Every conversation is practice. Every conversation, even the messy ones, is making you better.
Especially the messy ones, honestly, because those are the ones where you're stretching, where you're trying new things, where you're growing.
Perfectly smooth conversations might feel nice, but they don't teach you much. It's the conversations where you struggle a little that help you improve the most.
Adam, I want to mention something that often gets overlooked in language learning, and that's body language and tone of voice.
Oh, this is so important, especially at B1, where your vocabulary might be limited. Your body language and tone can carry a huge part of the conversation.
Think about it. If you smile while you say that sounds really nice, it feels warm and genuine. But if you say the same words with a flat face and a monotone voice, it feels cold and disinterested.
The words are exactly the same, but the feeling is completely different.
So here are a few simple body language tips. First, make eye contact, but not too much. Look at the person when they're talking, and look away naturally sometimes. This shows you're listening without making it intense.
Second, nod occasionally. A small nod while someone is talking says, "I'm following you, keep going." It's a tiny gesture, but it makes the speaker feel heard.
Third, smile when it's natural. You don't need to smile the whole time, that would be strange, but a genuine smile when someone says something funny, or when you greet them, or when you say goodbye, creates warmth.
Fourth, use your hands a little. Gestures help you communicate, especially when you can't find the right word. Pointing, showing sizes with your hands, miming an action. These are all perfectly natural and helpful.
And fifth, your tone of voice matters enormously. A warm, friendly tone makes even simple words sound inviting. "How are you?" said with genuine warmth sounds completely different from the same words said mechanically.
I think tone is especially important for podcast listeners. Actually, because you're hearing our voices right now, and you're picking up on our tone, we're speaking calmly, gently, with warmth, and that's the same kind of tone you can bring to your conversations.
You don't have to change your personality. You just have to let your natural friendliness come through in your voice.
And here's the great news. Body language and tone are universal. They work the same way in every language, so the skills you already have from conversations in your first language, they transfer directly to English.
You already know how to smile, how to nod, how to show interest with your eyes. You don't need to learn those things. You just need to remember to use them even when you're nervous about your English.
Let's talk about easy conversation topics because one of the biggest fears people have is, what do I even talk about?
This is a great thing to cover, especially for B1 learners. Having a few go-to topics in your back pocket gives you confidence. Even if you don't use them, just knowing they're there makes you feel safer.
The first universal topic is the weather. I know, it sounds boring, but there's a reason people talk about the weather all the time. It's safe, it's shared, and everyone has something to say about it.
Beautiful day, isn't it? Or, can you believe how cold it is? Or, I heard it might rain this weekend. Simple, easy, and it often leads to other topics like weekend plans or holidays.
The second topic is food. What you had for lunch, a restaurant you tried, something you cooked, something you want to try. Food is endlessly fascinating to most people.
Have you tried that new place on Main Street? Or, I'm trying to cook more at home. Do you cook much?
The third topic is weekends and holidays. Any plans for the weekend is one of the most common conversation starters in English. It works with friends, colleagues, acquaintances, even strangers in some situations.
And if the weekend has already passed, how was your weekend? Did you do anything nice?
The fourth topic is entertainment. Movies, TV shows, books, music, podcasts. These are great because they're fun, and people love sharing recommendations.
Have you watched anything good lately? Or, I just started this new show and I can't stop watching it.
The fifth topic is travel. Where you've been, where you want to go, places you recommend. Travel stories are always interesting and give people a chance to share experiences.
Even if you haven't traveled much, you can ask others about their trips. Where's the best place you've ever been is a question that almost always gets a great answer.
And the sixth topic, which is simple but effective, is the current situation. Whatever is happening right now, right where you are. The event you're attending, the food at the party, the weather outside, the music playing, the building you're in.
Commenting on the shared environment is the easiest conversation starter there is, because you don't need any background knowledge. You're just responding to what's right in front of you.
So there you go. 6 easy topics. Weather, food, weekends, entertainment, travel, and the current situation. If you can remember even 3 of these, you'll never feel completely stuck in a conversation.
Let's talk about some common mistakes that people make in daily conversations, so our listeners can avoid them.
The first mistake is giving one-word answers. When someone asks, "How was your weekend?" and you say, "Good," that's a dead end. The other person has to do all the work to keep the conversation going.
Instead, try to add one small detail. It was nice. I went for a long walk by the river and the weather was perfect. Now the other person has something to respond to.
The second mistake is asking too many questions without sharing anything about yourself. If you only ask questions, it starts to feel like an interrogation. The other person might feel uncomfortable.
Good conversations have a balance. You ask, they answer. You share something related, they ask you something, and so on. It's a back-and-forth dance, not a one-way interview.
The third mistake is overthinking your grammar while you're speaking. If you pause for 10 seconds to construct a grammatically perfect sentence, the conversation loses its flow. It's better to speak with small mistakes than to not speak at all.
And most of the time, people will understand you even if your grammar isn't perfect. Communication is about meaning, not about perfection.
The fourth mistake is apologizing too much for your English. Saying, "Sorry, my English is not very good," once at the beginning might be okay. But saying it every few minutes makes the other person feel awkward, and it actually draws more attention to your mistakes than the mistakes themselves.
Instead of apologizing, just keep going. If you make a mistake, correct it quickly and move on. I went to the other store. That's natural and nobody minds.
And the fifth mistake is comparing yourself to native speakers. You hear someone speak fluent, natural English, and you think, "I'll never be that good." But that person has been speaking English their entire life. You're on a completely different journey, and your progress is impressive.
The fact that you can have any conversation at all in a second language is an achievement. Please don't let comparison steal your confidence.
Before we start wrapping up, I want to give our listeners some ideas for practicing at home. Because the skills we talked about today get better with practice, and you don't always need a conversation partner to practice.
That's such a good point, Adam. Here are some things you can do on your own.
First, practice talking to yourself. I know it sounds funny, but it works. When you're cooking or walking or doing chores, narrate what you're doing in English. "Okay, now I'm going to chop the onions. I need a bigger bowl. Where did I put the salt?"
This gets your brain used to producing English in real time without the pressure of another person listening.
Second, practice our restart phrases. Stand in front of a mirror and say, "So, by the way," and then make up a question. "So, by the way, have you been to that new park?" Do it 5 times with different questions. It will start to feel natural very quickly.
Third, listen to conversations in English, on podcasts, on YouTube, on TV shows, and notice how people handle pauses. Notice what they say when the conversation slows down. You'll start to hear these patterns everywhere.
Fourth, keep a small notebook of conversation topics. When you think of something interesting, write it down. Try asking about favorite holiday destinations. Mention the new coffee shop. When you have a list of topics ready, you'll feel more confident going into conversation.
And fifth, practice with us. Listen to this episode again. Pause when we give examples and try saying the phrases out loud. Repeat after us. Let the words live in your mouth, not just in your ears.
The more you practice, the less scary conversations will feel. And one day you'll be in a conversation and realize, wait, I'm not nervous anymore. I'm just talking. And that will be a wonderful moment.
Adam, before we close, I want to come back to where we started, to silence itself.
Yes, we've spent this whole episode giving you tools to handle silence, and that's important. But I also want to say something that might surprise you.
Sometimes silence is not a problem. Sometimes it's actually beautiful.
Think about sitting with a close friend, watching the sunset. Nobody is talking, and it feels perfect. The silence isn't awkward, it's full, it's comfortable, it's connected.
Yes, and sometimes silence between the words is part of the beauty.
When you're with someone you trust, silence can feel like a warm blanket. It says we don't need to fill every moment with words. We're comfortable enough just to be here together.
So while we want you to have the tools to keep conversations going when you need them, we also want you to know that it's okay to be quiet sometimes. Not every silence needs to be filled.
Some of the deepest connections between people happen in the quiet moments. A shared glance, a comfortable pause, a deep breath together.
As you grow in English, you'll learn not just when to speak, but also when to be silent. And that's a sign of real communication maturity.
So don't fear silence. Learn to be friends with it. Let it be part of your conversations, not as an enemy, but as a natural, welcome guest.
Let's take a moment to reflect on everything we covered today.
We started by talking about why silence feels so uncomfortable, and we learned that a lot of the discomfort comes from the stories we tell ourselves in our heads. We can change those stories.
We shared personal experiences that showed us silence is usually more awkward in our minds than in reality. The other person often doesn't even notice the pause.
We learned 4 simple tools. Restart phrases like, so by the way, and oh, I wanted to ask you. Follow-up questions that build on what the other person said. Echo and expand, where you repeat a word and add your own experience. And small reactions like, oh really, and that sounds nice.
We practiced 3 realistic scenarios: meeting someone new at a party, chatting with a neighbor, and having lunch with a colleague. And we saw how simple, natural language is all you need.
We talked about what to do when your mind goes blank, be honest. Go back to an earlier topic, comment on your surroundings, ask an open question, or just let the silence exist for a moment.
We explored the power of listening and how being a good listener actually makes conversations easier, not harder.
We reminded ourselves that conversations don't need to be perfect, that body language and tone matter as much as words, and that there are at least 6 easy topics you can always fall back on.
We discussed common mistakes like one-word answers, asking too many questions, overthinking grammar, apologizing too much, and comparing yourself to native speakers.
We shared ideas for practicing at home, like talking to yourself, rehearsing phrases, and listening for patterns in English media.
And we ended by making peace with silence itself, recognizing that it's not always a problem, and that sometimes it's actually something beautiful.
That's a lot of ground for a first episode, and if you stayed with us the whole way, you should feel really proud of yourself.
We covered a lot today, but remember, you don't have to use everything at once. Just pick one thing, one tool, one phrase, one idea, try it in your next conversation, see how it feels, and come back to this episode whenever you need a reminder.
To everyone listening, thank you for spending this time with us.
Thank you for listening, thinking, and practicing with us.
We hope you feel a little more relaxed about silence in English conversations now.
And we hope you feel kinder to yourself when you need time to think.
This was episode 1 of Think and Speak English, and we are just getting started. There are 19 more episodes ahead, and each one will build on what you've learned today.
In episode 2, we'll talk about expressing your feelings naturally in English, how to say what you feel in a way that's honest, clear, and comfortable. It's going to be a really beautiful episode, and we hope you'll be there.
If you enjoyed today, please share this podcast with a friend who's also learning English. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do, so you'll be with us for the whole journey.
Remember, you don't have to fill every second with words.
Keep speaking.
Keep pausing.
Keep learning.
And remember, you don't have to fill every second with words.
Take care, and see you next time.
Bye for now.